Good afternoon from Tanya Aarons at Sacred Space, Titania's Realm, because I live with the Pixies on, beautiful, beautiful land here in Brisbane, Australia, that today of all days is Invasion Day, or as we white folks term it, Australia Day, a day to celebrate all the accomplishments of Australians, but a day of darkness created on the backs of traumatised, brutalised, genocided out Aboriginal people. So I wish to honour the original inhabitants of this land and express appreciation that as a migrant from New Zealand and a citizen of planet Earth, because I too am Indigenous to this planet, I am grateful to be sharing your space, your land of Australia, under the watchful eye of Uluru, where I have never been because I've been trapped in Brisbane for now, 38 years. No, that can't be right. My daughter's 37. Anyway, I arrived in 1988. 34 years. No, 35 years it will be. Sorry, it is 34 years. It will be 35 years on the 1st of August, 2023. So I've been walking on this Brisbane land for 35 years, and I haven't got very far. I didn't get to go wandering. My dream has always been to, visit all the sacred sites in the world and the entire planet. And one of those most sacred sites in Australia, well, the most famous sacred sites, because I'm sure there are thousands more according to each mob's traditions, some of which I would not be allowed to visit as a woman. But the most famous of them all is Uluru, that got renamed Ayers Rock. I try to be conscious of the original traditions, even though my knowledge is very scant. So I think it's important that when you live on a land to be educated and honour the ancestors of that land and the spirits of that land, and to live in peace and harmony with all the energies associated with that land. And as a white person, we're prone to conquest and destruction and genocide, and we lose the spiritual connection, the mythologies, and the beauty, the honour that comes with knowing all of that. Anyway, so I acknowledge the original ancestors, that I live on Aboriginal land, that I'm very grateful for, because this was the only home that I was safe in since I've been in Brisbane, relatively safe, because there's been a few invidious unsettled rumblings, over the years, especially since the last 3 years with the COVID epoch, where people have started to devolve and lose their minds, which people do when they're suffering extreme trauma and distress. That is quite a normal reaction to trauma. So, but I don't want to focus too much on the negativity of which we are immersed in like frogs in a boiling pot. I'm making this video this afternoon. It's my morning. I slept very well last night. I had to get up a few times, with my bladder, which is slowly dying and problematic. But it wasn't too bad a night. It was only a few times. And whereas the night prior I had a very bad night again, lots of insomnia and lots of interruptions with my bladder, and it's been extremely hot because it's summer in Australia, and summer in Australia, in Queensland and in the northern parts of Australia is quite intense. I came to this country for the warmer weather, but it's as I've gotten older and weaker, I suppose, more fragile, the temperatures have gotten hotter, and I struggle. But I have been blessed. A beautiful friend of mine gifted me a very expensive air conditioner, so I do normally, in the worst of the heat, sit in my front lounge and enjoy that blessing from my beautiful friend, to whom I am also very grateful. But I try not to live under the air conditioner all day long because it's not healthy to be in constant air conditioning. So I usually spend much of the day out on my sacred space land. I don't own this land, I'm just a tenant here. But, I call it mine because I've lived here for almost 20 years. And I sit out the back. And to a certain degree it is mine. I've put a lot of work in the garden and effort into making this a beautiful sacred space and a safe haven and almost a resort for my own enjoyment, right? Since I can't afford to go on holidays and fulfill my dream of visiting all the sacred spaces all around the earth, because, airfares and accommodation and probably food wouldn't be too dear in certain countries, except for maybe Paris and England, and UK. But I don't think food costs a terrible lot in places like Machu Picchu or Angkor. But anywho, that was a long time dream which was never fulfilled because of vicious attacks on my life and dire poverty. So there is that. And also I was, for 20 years occupied in raising my children under extreme duress and vicious attacks on my life. So it wasn't an easy task, and therefore I have not prospered. But never mind. I am prospering now. I am prospering in my own spirit, and I am prospering in my own heart and soul, and I am prospering in my own love for my own survival to thrival. And that, my friends, is an act of defiance, of courage, and of determination that sometimes lays me flat with the awe of it. So the purpose of this video, I'll get back to the theme that I want to go into, is those of you who know me from Power Talk days, when I used to sit in the spiritual psychic rooms. I was on there for about 16 years. Know that my nickname is Psychedelic Dreamer, or was, because I haven't gone back on Power Talk for many years. But anyway, we won't go into how that devolved, but it was a grinding, slow devolution, so I'm over it now. But yes, my nickname is Psychedelic Dreamer, and I have not ever indulged or dabbled in or taken psychedelic drugs, except for, on rare occasions. I did dabble in my 40s and early 50s occasionally with cannabis, which I found incredibly healing with my complex PTSD issues although on a few occasions I did have some very bad, I guess you'd call them trips, and got very, very unwell and freaked out as a consequence. But even those bad experiences, I think, did some neural pathway rewiring, because since those days, and I didn't do it often, mainly because I had a couple of bad experiences and was a bit wary of it. But I believe it helped heal my mind, my body and spirit from a lot of my, quite ancient, relating to very, very early childhood traumas. So psychedelic dreamer, and the dreaming happened long before I dabbled in cannabis, people. I was born with that ability to have dreams, and a lot of my dreams during my childhood were trauma dreams because I was surviving my childhood. But my mother made it a practice. My mother was an occultist. My father was an occultist. So my mother made it a practice of every morning that I had to go to her and tell her my dreams, which I did quite cheerfully and happily and naively as a child, not realising she was gleaning information into aspects of my psyche that she could actually use against me, because she was actually quite an evil person. But having said that, it's very, very therapeutic to write down or record one's dreams, and you don't necessarily, or should not necessarily, feel you have to share it with anyone, including your mother or father or lover or partner or friends, especially if you have suspicions that they are manipulative, evil, toxic, dangerous for your well-being. Your dreams are your dreams and are gifted to you by the grace of the Holy One, blessed be their name forever and ever, and the gods and his angels, his or her angels. And maybe even sometimes your dreams are gifted to you by the Fae or by the elementals of the land and the sea, wherever you are living on your sacred space on planet Earth. I'm flushing at the word sea because I was raised by the sea, and the sea is a beautiful place to be raised by, and it would have been a beautiful childhood had I not had monsters in my familial abode. But the sea, Tangaroa and Māoritanga, was my mother and father and sister and a dear friend who comforted me and guided me many times during my childhood. I am alive today because of the forces of nature, who taught me that everything is temporary, everything has its season, and everything passes, and that change is a constant. But that, having said that, the more things change, the more they stay the same. If you go back to your childhood home, as I did back in 2000, very late 2004, early 2005, it was both a shock and kind of a milestone to see that my childhood birthplace at Island Bay, Wellington, had not changed one iota. The rocks, the ocean, the vista. The houses had changed, they'd been painted, and even had, in my childhood home, the windows had been altered and changed. So they looked different, and that was very alienating. But the actual scenery and nature and the land and the energies on that land and coming up from the sea remains the same. And that is the beauty of eternity as we know it, that we can return to a place of memory and it will always be the same. But our emotions and our trauma memories will remain also the same until we tap into them and release them and look at that view that we're seeing with a different eye. I haven't been back to New Zealand because of poverty issues, which is awful. It doesn't cost a great deal to fly to New Zealand, but there's no one there that I want to particularly see except for a childhood friend who doesn't maintain much contact, so why bother? And my family there have turned rotten and toxic, so I have no inclination to go back to my childhood home. But I am grateful that I got to have some kind of closure and going home at the end of 2004, early 2005. So Psychedelic Dreamer, that's me. I had a very intense dream this morning. Now, I woke up, jumped out of bed. It was 12 p.m. I kind of fluttered into consciousness a few times this morning, but I said to myself, you are so tired and you have worked so hard in the last few days. I mean, I didn't work, for the last 2 days, but I worked very, very hard on a beautiful pendant. And so I know if I overdo things with my trauma issues that I have to rest my mind, body and spirit. Otherwise I have kind of, I just kind of break down. So I'm bringing you into my bedroom to show you, if I can get it off all the other things, to show you my beautiful pendant that I made, 2 and a bit days ago. So here it is. And as you can see, it's a piece of labradorite. And it flashes the most lovely colours. Let me see. Anyway, it's got, try and get it in the light, reflecting the light. It's flashing the most beautiful colours, and its back actually has stunning colours also. That pink's just a reflection of my sarong. But anyway, I made it, and it was miraculous that I made it because I've never done stone setting before. So I'm very proud of that effort, very proud of it. And it's a new attempt in my new silversmithing journey. And I've put it on back to front, to set stones. This is called a prong setting. And look, it's quite amateurish, but it's my first attempt. I made the bail with 3 jump rings I soldered together. It's just beautiful, and I'm very proud of it. So, and it means that now that I'm learning this skill, I'll be able to make more and potentially, get myself a little business maybe. My business name, as you know, is Titania's Realm, which was a name gifted to me by the fairies. My name Tanya is diminutive of Tatiana, which in English is Titania. And Titania actually was a Titan queen of Greek mythology originally, but is also in Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare, is the queen of the forest fairies. And I decided it was time I became queen of my own destiny and got my life together to the degree that I am able to create beautiful things and have self-esteem and feel accomplished and happy and delighted and a little bit triumphant. And especially in these dark times, having a creative outlet to distract me from the ghastly horror that we're living through at this current point in time. Today being, and I will remind you again, white people, my fellow white people. Today being Invasion Day, the 26th of January 2023. So I could go dancing tonight. There's bands on at the Live Wire Bar at the casino, but I'll see how I feel. I don't feel too tired because I had a long rest this morning, but it's hot, and I'm going to have to be very cautious with money, so I might stay home, save it for my usual Friday night and go out tomorrow night, which will be a lot quieter because Australia Day gets quite busy sometimes. But there's a beautiful Aboriginal woman I made friends with some years ago. Her name is Lolly. Lolly, if you're out there and you see my videos, love you, darling. And it would be lovely if I went out tonight and I ran into her again, because I haven't seen her for quite some years. So I presume she lives in Brisbane still, but she may have moved on, or I don't know. But I have fond memories of dancing with Lolly, who's a beautiful soul, and and at least if I go dancing tonight, they'll play mostly Australian bands. So that's quite good music, most of it, So I'm digressing again. I made this video because I want to tell you about my dream last night. This morning. It was this morning's dream. And it was very intense and very detailed. And already it's slipping away from me. So that's why I wanted to record it. I should have got to the point 22 minutes ago, and I wouldn't have lost already fragments like a gossamer spider web of that dream, which is already melting. And I am melting. I'm going to have to open the window. My goodness. Come to Australia, they said. The weather's good, mate, they said. It's really lovely here. You'll have a lovely life here. And that was the plan. It wasn't the cards that were gifted to me, but never mind. We won't go back to that horror. We will deal with what we're dealing with, which is the now, which is the beauty and sanguinity, the sanguinosis, and the joy of my survival to thrival in this paradigm, in this moment of time, on sacred space. So we will delight in what we can delight in, while we can delight in, because life is short and the gods are capricious. And although I know the gods love me well, have loved me to keep me alive and sustain me to be in this moment in time on YouTube with you all, one should not take one's very own life and spirit for granted, because Biami, or Great Spirit, or Adonai, or God, watches over everything quite impartially, I believe, quite impartially. And the history of humankind is like a giant swallow murmuration, twisting and turning, and sometimes it's a hell loop, and sometimes it's a paradise, and one can never know at which point in time it's going to shift into some other undesirable, dangerous direction. And that is why we must love each other, all races on earth, with honour and respect and care for each other and our traditions and our country, our foot on planet Earth. That's my belief system. But it's hard to love people that consistently try to kill you or malfeasant and do the wrong thing by you. And I know that well. I'm still absolutely horrified that my medical file is missing from QE2 hospital. first they deny your existence by removing any bureaucratic evidence of you, and the next step was they'll have to disappear me as well. But I'm here on YouTube, alive and well in this moment, and on record. I exist, therefore I am. I am defiance, therefore I fight. And I speak with words of truth, with words of light, and with words of occasional smiting, gifted to me from the Holy One, blessed be his name forever and ever, and his angel Michael. And I'm not a Christian, and I'm not particularly religious, but I give honour to Creator of all that is, was, and ever shall be, without whom I would not be existing on this planet in this point in time. And we'll have a little argument about that when I get to the big guy upstairs sometime in the future. But as to what that plan was intended to be. But however, it created me as I am, as crazy as I appear to, the non-religious or the uninitiated. And that's fine. If they haven't walked in my moccasins or in my, and lived inside my reconfigured mind from years of near-death experiences, then they might feel like, people think they're a little bit crazy at times too. But crazy is as crazy does, and I'm certainly not crazy, even though I do have my spiritual and religious flowerings or emphatic posturings or colourings of my life journey on this planet. It's all a bit of fluff, people, padding for the life history that is the psychedelic dreamer. So I woke up at 12:12 p.m, astonished that I'd slept so long, but a sign that I'm, really didn't feel too well yesterday. And so I'm glad that I had the rest, but my physical body had the rest, but my astral body had no rest at all, and this is why. So I woke up from this dream, and it was an intense dream. I've been under a form of spiritual attack. Nothing too serious, nothing that I haven't been able to cope with, but I'm conscious of it intensifying, and it's been since roughly Christmas Eve, which is a very potent day that was very potent to my mother, being German, who celebrated Christmas Eve, the German Christmas. So I'm not sure if the spirit or if the negativity that's been dogging me is my own mother's spirit or something far more powerful or dangerous. And I haven't been feeding it with energy, because one does not feed these things with energy. But a lot of it was like not overtly spiritual. It was things like, medical problems with my bladder, which turned out to be a good thing, because that's how I discovered my file is missing. So is it good? Is it bad? Is it good? I constantly having to weigh up the pros and cons of any situation. So my bladder going off tap, which happened around about 30th of December and lasted for about a week. I presented at the hospital on the 8th of January, so it was just over a week. Was a bit humbling and frightening, because I became convinced that I had bladder cancer and that I was going to die. And for someone who's been dying for 57 years, I keep, Lady Death keeps licking my eyeball and kissing my cheeks and wrapping me in her arms, and then pirouettes me and flings me out to dance another day. So I'm very conscious that although I do get frightened and fragile and maudlin about dying, it's not so easy to die I've died or come very close to dying a multiple of times in this incarnation. So, you know, it's not that easy to achieve for me personally, and yet for others it's been bang gone, that's it. So this is what I mean about the capricious nature of the gods. They, whomever they are, the Holy One in all manifestation, seems to like to keep me here grounded on planet Earth, on my sacred space in Brisbane, Australia. I haven't made it to live by the sea in Byron Bay because of poverty issues, and that too was a long time dream. And so I've had to make peace with the fact that I'm not going anywhere. I'll be living out my life in this little housing commission cottage on my sacred space land until I probably die. And of course I had dreams of finding true love and a partner and living in Byron Bay by the sea, not necessarily in a mansion or anything, but just being by the sea with my beloved one, and all these lovely fantasies. And they too serve their purpose. They kept me full of hope and something to aspire to, like my little jewellery business I'm manifesting daily. And dreams are free, and although not always very realistic, give the soul something beautiful to look forward to. I've got a crow outside my window. He's fluttering. You can't quite see him, but he's out there fluttering. So, Odin, all hail to Odin, the All-Father. He sends me the most beautiful crows, because I live in Australia, mate, and this country's full of beautiful crows. Stone the crow, mate. Stone the bloody crow. So yes, I've named the crows. There's usually 3 that come around, and I call them Heckle and Jekyll and Schmeckle jokingly, but there's usually just one lately, and I just call him Mr. Crow. He's had a swim. I made him. Well, that reminds me, I've left the bloody hose on, haven't I? I've left the bloody hose on. See, I am getting old and a bit silly. Just turn that hose off because we don't want to waste water. Did I leave it on? Yes, I did indeed leave it on. Oh, silly old chook. Okay, well anyway, that bit of garden's got a bit of a soaking over there. There's a hole in my bath, my bird bath. I have to either buy a liner or get a new second-hand bird bath, because I don't like it not being deep enough for them to have a proper splash about. And sometimes on hot days like this, I sit in it too, because I can't afford a swimming pool. And none of my neighbours invite me to swim in their pools, which, that's fine. They're all wealthy and a little bit condescending at times. But, when I had a swimming pool, I shared mine with my neighbours and my friends, and we had a lovely time, because wealth is meant to be shared and enjoyed, just say. But anyway, I'll survive. I'll sit in my little bird bath later and have a little splash, or have a cold shower, or I'll go to an actual public swimming pool and bathe there. But I haven't been swimming. I haven't swum all summer. Summer's nearly over, and I didn't swim last year. I didn't swim much the year before. I think we went to Coochie Mudlow a couple of times, which is a lovely day out. But I miss swimming. I really do. I really miss swimming. And I'm hot. But anyway, I digress. Mr. Crow distracted me. I was about to tell you my dream. So here we go. We'll get into the dream now. So I dreamt that... I've got to think how it went. So yes, I dreamt that I was walking along some suburban street, and that's right. So I'm walking along some kind of, sort of like in a small town somewhere. I don't know where it was, but I was new to that town. Obviously, I'd never been there before, and I was like taking my iPhone. I was taking photos of sights around the town. and I was driving down this kind of gravel road, and I looked up, and there was this beautiful scenery. It was of this mountain that was kind of like round, but looked like kind of like the shape of a volcano, but it had a rounded head. It looked a bit like, now I've watched a lot of sci-fi and horror movies, and UFO movies. So it looked a bit like Devil's Mountain, in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, how it goes up all conical, but then that mountain has a very flat top on top, where the little boy was drawing it, and it turns out it's a real mountain, right? This mountain that I dreamt of was sandwiched between two other hills, so it looked like a giant lingam going up with the woman's legs parted like that, like the hills meeting at the base of this mountain. But I didn't look at the sexual imagery of that at all in the dream. I've only just thought about that now. But it curved up like this, and then it was rounded at the top, and it was shaped like that. So almost like the shape of a beehive, but narrower, like that. And I stood in front of it, and there was beautiful trees and foliage, and it was green, and this mountain, it was like a blue sky behind it, and it was just almost glowing with radiance, this mountain. So I knew the dream was showing me that this mountain was very important symbology. But as often happens with my dreams, I'm quite sure that there's a real mountain that looks just like that. I just haven't seen it yet. Or maybe, no, I haven't seen that mountain. But I have a feeling it exists somewhere on Earth, and then I may get to see it in real life, and if not, someone might send me a picture of it and say, yes, it exists. This is similar to what you described, right? But not all my dreams come true and are precognitive people. Most of them are just trauma processing and patchwork quilts, piecing together little bits of information and mixing up and throwing them into nonsensical disarray, which is fine. That's how the brain heals itself. But this dream was important because it started off showing me this mountain, this beehivey but tall looking mountain, and I stood there in the dream, I'm standing in front of this mountain. It was a fair distance away from me, but I was standing there, and I just went, oh, that's just so beautiful. And my first instinct was I'd pull out my iPhone, and they made a point of they, meaning the dreamscape, or the spirits, made a point of showing me picking up my phone and literally taking a photo of it. And so it's almost like I was watching myself from an outside situation, from an observer situation, taking a photo of this mountain and being completely in awe and delight at the beauty of it. So click, I go, I take the photo. And then the dream shifted immediately. I start walking up the street. And it was just a normal, paved street with sidewalk, pavement, cement paved street. And I'm walking up the street, and I'm looking down at my feet as I'm walking, and the houses were all on the left-hand side of this sidewalk or pavement, and they were just very ordinary, like brick houses. They weren't anything fancy. They were just all looked like kind of like smallish 3-bedroom kind of homes, maybe 4-bedroom. There was nothing particularly striking about the houses. It just looked like any ordinary street in some small town somewhere that's perhaps a little bit working class. Nothing grand about the houses. They had all like little front gardens. It sort of looked like, I don't know where in the world I was. it felt like it was summertime, but it wasn't very hot, not like it's hot here right now. Like I'm dying. Probably need to move us into the aircon. That's how hot it is. Whew, spitzing. Whew. But anyway, oh my goodness. Welcome to Australia, mate. The weather's good. People are friendly. Some of the time. And life is beautiful, mate. Life is beautiful. Don't get sick or get COVID because they'll genocide you out. Apart from that, life's beautiful. Anyway, where was I? Where was I? Not being genocided out, because how dare you genocide us. Remove my file, remove evidence of me. That's bad enough, but to actually actively kill me? Not friendly, not nice. But they've been trying to kill me for a long time in this country. I have had 3 strangulations, so I know what I'm talking of. Note my purple coloured lips from my sleep apnea, but that's self-inflicted because I refused the CPAP machine because it didn't work. The new GP I saw already mumbled about having to put me on CPAP. No, they won't, because it doesn't work. I've survived like this now for 20 years without CPAP, so that's another scam they're inflicting on the people, in my opinion. Maybe it works for some patients, but it didn't work for me. Anyway, I digress. And I don't deem that genocide. That's not the genocidal part, because I actually rejected that medical intervention. So that one is on me. If I die of sleep apnea, people, that was by choice, because I refused the CPAP. But I'm talking about all the other malfeasances that have gone on in the last 20 years. Evil it was. Anyway, back to my dream. So I'm in my dream state and I'm walking up this beautiful street. The street wasn't particularly wide, so it felt like a small town or somewhere semi-rural, because we have this beautiful mountain view. And I'm taking note of the houses. They all had like little terrace, little gardens in front with little gates that you go into. It was all very sweet. And but I hadn't paid particular attention to the houses. And I'm, looking down as I'm walking at my feet. And this is where the dream starts to get nonsensical, people. So I see at my feet beautiful cut out sterling silver. It could have been aluminium, but it looked like sterling silver. Can't really tell the difference in the dream state, right, looking down. And there were cutouts of that someone had sawed out, like little dolly-shaped designs of a little doll. And then there were little... So I reached down, I picked up this... And they weren't pendants, they were just cutouts, like someone was preparing to make jewellery with it and had cut out the design, sawed out the design, but had dropped them somehow as they were walking along the street. So I picked up one, and it was of a little girl shape, like a little dolly shape. It was like crazy looking hair and a little dress, like almost like cartoon, cut out figures, but in silver. So I picked it up and I went, oh, that's just lovely. Someone living here must be a silversmith like I am, or that I aspire to be, and that I am. Let's not put myself down. I'm now officially a silversmith. Maybe not a very good one yet, but I'm on that journey. So anyway, so I'm picking up this doll, and then I thought, oh, I wonder who it belongs to. They've dropped it as they're walking, and I know how much work goes into cutting out silver, because you have to have your jewellery saw, you got to draw it, and you got to saw it. It's a lot of work, and I'm admiring it, and it's quite a big piece. It was like that big, and I'm holding it in my hand, and I'm like, oh, but that's beautiful, and someone's lost it. They'll be devastated. They've put all this work into it. It's just thrown on the ground, So I looked around at the houses and I couldn't see who, couldn't tell by looking at the houses who might have, dropped it. So anyway, I picked it up and I put it in my bag and I kept walking. I walked a few more paces. I looked down and there was another cutout. I think it was a heart shape. So I was like, oh no, they've dropped another one. And it was almost childlike, like I'm playing some kind of game, following in someone else's footsteps, picking up their pieces of art that they've dropped. So I picked it up and I looked at it, oh, that's a heart. Oh, and looking at it like with a critical eye, like, oh, well, I could solder a jump ring on it and wear it as a pendant, but it's not mine. It belongs to someone. How could they have dropped all their beautiful things as they're walking up the street? It was a bit odd, right? So I put that in my bag and I continue walking, and as I'm walking along, I pick up 3 or 4 more pieces. One looked a bit like, a sunburst that they'd cut out, and I can't remember, I think there was another caricature person. So I'm picking up, so there was about 4 or 5 items I picked up off the street. And so by now I had quite a few pieces, and I'm thinking, how could they have lost that part of me as they're walking up the street? It was a bit bizarre. So I decided in my dream that I need to find who they belong to, because they'll be upset to know they've lost it. So I'm standing in front of these houses and these red brick, very ordinary looking, boring looking homes really. And so, but the one I'm standing with had really quite a pretty garden with roses, and I could see someone's taken great delight in their garden, which is a form of, artistic predilections. So I decided randomly that must be, why I giggled was that it was a friend of mine just started following me on my Titania's Realm page, and I thought that was delightful. So anyway, I thought, oh, this garden's lovely. So I opened the gate and walked up the path and knocked on the door. So I knock on the door, and this woman comes to the door, and she's dressed in all black, but she was just wearing a black top, black cardigan, and a black skirt. It came down mid-calf, quite demure, but nicely dressed, but, dressed like a middle-aged woman, quite demure and quite respectable. No jewellery per se. Had sort of shoulder-length hair, little curly hair. I can't remember even what her facial features looked like per se. I just didn't take too much notice of her face. But, I was conscious that she was in her late 50s, possibly, like my age, late 50s, maybe early 60s. And she says, oh, hello, dear, how can I help you? And I said, well, I'm stopped here at your house. I said, I've been walking up the street and someone's dropped all these sterling silver cutouts that they've put a lot of work into cutting, sawing them out, and they've been dropping them up the street. And I've stopped here at your home to ask you if perhaps, someone in your household makes jewellery, and would they like them back? Because I've been collecting them up as I walk up the street. And she said, oh, no, dear, no one here makes jewellery. And I said, I'm really disappointed. I said, I really would like to find out if anyone is the owner of these pieces so I can return them to them. She said, oh, that's very sweet of you, very kind. Would you like to come in and have a cup of tea? Because it's hot, Anyway, so I said, oh, that's very kind of you. And I go in there, and there were 3 other women also dressed very demurely, wearing black, wearing a sort of cardigan. And she said, we've got a few visitors here, but but, welcome, come and join us for a cup of tea, which I thought was very friendly and kind. Probably wouldn't happen in real life. People don't tend to invite strangers into their homes anymore, haven't for years. And, well, there's good reason for that, hasn't it? Society has devolved into something ugly. But I know I don't invite strangers in because it's simply, one has to be on guard, Not like in my childhood where we all, as children, ran in and out of the neighbours' homes constantly all day long, visited each other, the doors were never locked, and there was a lot of freedom in that respect, which was, was nice if you were safe in those people's homes, which I was. I was safer in the other people's homes in my neighbourhood than in my own, just saying. Anyway, so I enter into this woman's home, and it wasn't very. It was actually probably about the size of my home here. It wasn't very large, and we go into her kitchen, and it was like painted yellow, and it was lots of yellow, or there was a glow of yellow about it. Yellow in spiritual terms means friendship and communication and friendliness, warmth, community, conviviality. So I thought, oh yes, they're making a point of showing me the warmth of the kitchen. Anyway, this lady goes immediately over to her kettle and starts boiling water, and she tells the other women, she said, oh, this lady's just knocked on the door. She's hoping to find someone who makes this jewellery pieces that she's found as she's walking up the street. And the other women look at each other and they said, oh, that's very strange. And some of the women were younger, like in their, early 30s perhaps. And so the lady making a cup of tea and said, you young ones, she says, you might know who it is in our area that makes jewellery, because it's obviously someone local if it was all up our street. And the younger women nodded and were twittering amongst themselves. And there was a man standing in the kitchen, and he was like a bit bald and had hair sort of flicked over, and actually he reminded me of someone, thinking about it, he reminded me of someone I knew many, many years ago when I was a waitress, who was actually a transvestite. He used to flick his hair over like that and bald and middle-aged, and he'd appear as a man, and then the next time he'd come for coffee he'd have a wig on and be dressed like an old dowager, and he used to like to dress up as a woman. So lovely man, lovely person, lovely transgender person. I think they were transgender, I'm not sure if he was trans or if he was just liked to wear women's clothes, but he would switch between one and the other. Anyway, thinking about it, the man in that dream looked a bit like him, but could have been another man. And there were a couple of other men in the kitchen area, so they were having some kind of a meeting or a gathering of some kind. Here I've entered into their space, right? So I'm sort of looking at them, because it's very strange how they were all dressed. The women were all dressed identical, and the men were dressed very, just ordinary sort of middle-aged, pants and t-shirt, casual, smart casual, Anyway, one of the women turned to the older man and they said, oh, father, blah, 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 blah. And I actually got a shock. I stood up like this and I said, oh, you're a priest. And he smiled and said, yes, I am, and these are my sisters. And the older woman turned to me and she said, yes, we're nuns. And I said, oh. And she said, yes, we're just having a gathering. She said, but don't let that bother you. Words to that thing. She said, don't let that bother you. And I said, oh no, I'm honoured to meet you. I said, actually, I said, sister, I said, I've been watching a lot of videos on YouTube lately on exorcisms. And I look at the priest, and he went, oh really, how interesting. I said, are you an exorcist? And he said, no, I'm not. And I said, oh, I have to tell you, Father, I'm not a Christian and I'm not Catholic. I said, but I have had a few ding-dongs with one of the exorcists on one of the videos. I said, wasn't a very nice man, and I didn't like his attitude to women at all. I said, in fact, I thought that was a bit demonic. And he looked at me and nodded. Didn't say any more. He wasn't offended, but he just nodded, said no more, and kind of just smiled at me slightly. And he said, oh, what is your path? And one of the younger nuns, and this was strange, this is nonsensical, people, because I don't claim this in real life, but one of the younger nuns turns to the man, the priest, the father, and says, she's a shaman. And I looked at the younger woman and I said to her, oh, am I? She says, yes, I knew at the moment you walked in the door, you're a shaman. And so I said to her, oh, I don't believe I'm a shaman. I said, but I do have the walk that goes with the shamanic walk. She says, yes, I saw that in your energy the moment you walked in. She says, you have survived many great travails and you are a natural born shaman. And so I just nodded and I didn't say any more. And the older nun said to the younger nun, oh, what's a shaman? And she said, it's a person that intercedes with the spirits on behalf of other people for healing. And also they can conduct exorcisms. And she giggled. And I looked at her and I kind of did a little giggle too. And then the father, the priest, said, oh, he said, that's very intriguing. And I said to him, well, it is. I said, but I don't claim to be a shaman, because to be a shaman you have to be trained in the lineage and initiated. And, you know, I've had the initiations of the near-death experiences and the horror, but I said one does not call oneself a shaman. A shaman is recognised by their tribe or their community. And he nodded. He said, oh, a bit like, you know, when you enter the priesthood, you'll almost have you chosen for that, or you choose that path. I said, correct. So anyway, we were talking about that, and then we started talking about exorcisms. And I said to the nuns and the priest, this is still in the context of the dream people, I said to them, you know, it's very strange. I said, I've been under full-blown attack since Christmas Eve. And they looked at me and I said, yes. I said, YouTube all through just prior to New Year's Eve sent me video after video after video of exorcist priests talking about their work. One who I didn't like and I actually thought had an attachment, was a bit demonic, in my humble layperson non-shamanic opinion. I said, and the other gentleman seemed quite genuine and lovely, but of course, being Catholic exorcists, their dogma is seated in Christianity. And I said I wasn't totally comfortable with that. And they said, oh, why weren't you comfortable with that? And I said, well, there's aspects of Christianity that I perceive in my worldview, with my lived experience, are quite evil, and I'm not always comfortable with it. So I said, Father Lampert, it was, in his interview, said that he tests the spirit of the person as to whether they acknowledge that Jesus Christ is the Supreme Lord, as to whether they are demonic or not. And I said, it's utterly ridiculous. I said, because as a Jew, I only have one supreme being in charge of the whole, multiverse, and that is, in Christian ideology, the Father of Jesus. So asking me to acknowledge Jesus as the supreme being is utterly ridiculous and demonic in my worldview, since while, I recognise that person existed and formulated an entire religion called Christianity, I can't give my complete obeisance to that energy, since that energy is not God. So, and asking people to do that who come from other religions or pathways, and then deeming them demonic for not being willing or able to do that is insane, quite frankly, and demonic in its own aspects, because it's not being inclusive. It's not recognizing that there is only one almighty creator, and that everything else is just fluff and interpretation and cultural background and, traditions based on, the cultures that those people have grown up in, some of which was not always good. Can we relate back to Invasion Day and what happened in that Lord's name right across the globe to Indigenous people in the name of that Lord, right? That's all I'm going to say about that. Those of you who are Indigenous know what I'm saying here. So to slaughter people in the name of your God is, to me, there is nothing holy about that, and is demonic. But don't get me wrong, I have, on my father's side, I have Viking ancestry, and the Norse people had their own religion, their own gods, Odin and Freya and Frey and Thor and many, many others. And they also conquered and slaughtered in the name of their gods too, and continued to conquer and slaughter after they converted to Christianity. So nothing really much changed, although they did settle down a bit in France and, become a little bit more civilized. But, I have issue with people that slaughter other peoples in the name of their God and call it holy. That's all I have to say about that, because there's nothing holy about that, the rape and slaughter of millions of people in the name of your God. So, little Beauregard sleeping at the back door. He's really hot. Poor baby. So anyway, so we had this discussion in the dream state about me watching videos about exorcists in real world in previous weeks, which I had to stop because it was enraging me beyond belief. And not enraging the demons inside me, but just enraging me from a point of a cultural, humanistic point of view that will, anyone who doesn't have that faith is condemned to hell and hellfire and deemed to be demonic. And if we bring through messages from the Holy One or Great Spirit, we're deemed to be demonic, and because we're not of that particular faith. And I'm sorry, I find that insane. I really do. This is probably why that entire church is collapsing now, because the bigotry and the hatred of others is really not the ethos of the true Christian spirit that was meant to be promulgated, back 2023 years ago. Whatever. So anyway, so the dream ended with me discussing, that I'd been under full-blown attack for weeks now, which is true. But of course, concurrent to that full-blown spiritual attack, which included ill health and affecting my bladder, we as a global population of human beings have all been under full-blown attack with the COVID regimes, and that was spread like verminous wildfire across the globe by, our governments and Big Pharma. And now we're left with generations of people who are left permanently altered and with health issues, and accessing hospitals has become a very strange and bizarre thing, because one is told, we can't do anything for you, basically go home to die, which goes against the Hippocratic Oath to start with, and losing one's medical file is just astonishing, or losing or destroying or disposing of it. But I had problems with our Queensland health system just before COVID became a thing back in June 2019, and I had problems on previous visits to that hospital too over the years. So that medical malfeasance and disrespect of the patient and dishonouring has been going on for at least 20 or 30 years, more even. Childbirthing my children was a dangerous and very traumatic experience, and my eldest daughter just turned 37. So it's been going on for some time. Our devolution of our Western civilization and culture as we know it has been on a rapid decline. This is my opinion. You, YouTube world, don't have to agree with me, but this is my opinion based on my personal lived experiences. And I do read all the comment sections of the videos that I watch, including the Exorcist ones, and those videos that I watch pertaining to the adverse effects and gene-altering experimental drug therapy that we were coerced as a nation to undertake. And some of us weren't in a position that they could outright reject it because their homes and their livelihoods were threatened. So there is that. My own daughter and best friends also accepted that transubstantiation of their genes and their spiritual core and their physical integrity under threat of their jobs. And we all know who's responsible for that: our leadership and the celebrity shillers and others who blindly followed without questioning, is this safe and effective, and is this even true? So the psychedelic dreamer, with all her dream imagery being thrown at her night after night after night for decades, had some little gifts of discernment after all. And now I'm left in a society where I very much doubt I will ever have grandchildren, given that my daughters are 37 and 35. That window of opportunity for their fertility was already dramatically lessened, that they were classed as geriatric mothers. And now who knows? Now who knows what's left of their fertility after this? So I had to resign myself to the fact that I will probably never be a grandmother. And I'm now having to live with the fact daily that I worry about, the life span of my daughters, one who's been estranged to me for many years, so I don't have any contact. But as a mother, one still does worry about, even one's estranged child. And I do worry. I worry about, how many years are allotted to them on this earth, and, what horrific illnesses might come about as a consequence of this. So, and this is a worldwide phenomenon affecting every human being on this planet equally. The Grim Reaper walks among us daily and is plucking people off with lots of sudden unexplained death, in particular of young people. So this is a real phenomena as a consequence of this. So I'm not crazy and I'm not paranoid and I'm certainly not lying, because I read the comment section and I read everything. I read what doctors have to say about it. I read what people who've lost family members and friends and lovers and partners have to say about it. So we are sitting on a powder keg now more than ever, waiting for the next logical extension of the last 3 years of this, and we are starting to see horrific results. So, and it's like living in a permanent fog of grief. And even though I have not been personally impacted, because so far, by the grace of the gods and the Holy One, blessed be their name forever and ever, my adult daughters are still well and still functioning quite well, and everything seems to be fine. My friends are well. One of my friends did lose movement and use of her left arm, which is still quite painful, and she's still struggling with that. So that was an adverse effect after the beep, 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 that shall not be named, but we all know what we're speaking of. So, yes, but apart from that, she appears to be quite well, reasonably well. And I, who remained unaltered in that respect, I am not well. So there's the irony of that. But then I've never really been well. I've struggled with health issues since early childhood. So it's just par for the course. And I'm grateful that I didn't accept any gene-altering therapy, because it would have gone to my weakest spot. And my weakest spot in my body, apart from my bowels and my lungs, is my bladder, since it's been altered with an alien attachment added to it called the TVT tape. Can you imagine what the spike protein would have done with that? It actually makes me wonder if I have been affected by the shedding of my beloved friends who've all been altered, that might have brought about some effect on my bladder, but I can't think about that because I will go insane. But I said all along to people that it will make no difference for those of us who are unvaccinated by choice and by defiance, because we're surrounded in a society where 90% of the people have been altered. And if we are to be affected by shedding, and I hope not, there's no escape, because unless you go and live like a hermit on a mountain somewhere in a deserted island, everyone around you has been altered. So there's no get out of the COVID epoch card. It's affected everyone everywhere. And the doctor telling me to go home from the ED department and live my best life and keep dancing, knowing that the damage to my bladder after 15 years is irreparable and that I'm compromised, knowing that it's a death sentence now, was very sweet. But, I've had a fragile couple of weeks thinking about that. I'll be honest with you, YouTube world, did hope that I would die from the sleep apnea and just gently pass away in my sleep, because that would be a lot kinder than bladder cancer or the inability to pee or any other consequences of that. So I'm living my life day by day, as I have always done since birth, one day at a time, delighting in my garden, my sacred space, and my pets, delighting in my creativity, which at this stage of life is making silversmithing, although for large parts of my earlier life it was doing making tapestries. And I've always been a creative person, and although I haven't always worked in the traditional, going out to work, being a productive arbeiter of society, worker of society, I did attempt, I did have my own business, which was robbed of me by my vicious, awful ex-husband. And that's okay, because I wasn't coping mentally after being strangled anyway, so there was that. But, I have worked hard in creative ways to stay alive and to maintain my body, mind and spirit, and I have been a productive member of society in ways that are not paid for, like my 12 years of joyful, tribal, shamanic dancing on a certain spot at the Live Wire Bar. I have deemed that at times as work and felt honour and duty bound to be there every week. Number one, for my own self-edification, for the exercise and for the love of music and the joy of dancing. But also there were times when people would come to me and, they received some form of healing from me by just simply being in my presence and dancing with me and being joyful, and that was life affirming and life sustaining and a gift in a way. So not all people work in the traditional sense, and not all people were paid or recognised for it. And in my case, I was demonised and marginalised and slandered and betrayed and even attempted murdered many times throughout my life. So by many, 3 strangulations and the malfeasance, the medical malfeasances and the slandering in my Jewish community, and there was so much soul murder that I actually was, pretty much a catatonic zombie for about 30 years of my life. Well, not fully catatonic, but there was a period of my life where I had to sleep for 16 hours a day just to survive, And in those days I was on heavy psych meds, which did me no good at all. So I make these videos in the twilight of my life, fully expecting that my life is now officially on the decline. And I'm fighting against that every day by creating, by talking to you on YouTube about my thoughts and feelings on things, which some of you might concur with and some of you might not comprehend, and some of you might not even care, and that's okay. You have your walk, I have mine. But at almost 58 years old, I'm actually astonished to still be alive and still be as well as I am, given my lifetime of ill health and vicious attacks on my life. And I'm grateful and also awe-inspired by my own continued existence on this planet. And I'm grateful and awe-inspired by the spirits and the angels and I guess the Fae who guide me and bless me and motivate me and sometimes work me too hard. Like this was 2 days in the making, and I can't do anything now. I haven't wanted to do anything for the last few days. I'm exhausted from it. But when I can make my small little achievements and then I take a break and then I make something else. So I'm grateful for that, for the flow and the ebb, just like the waves on the sea. I never know where I'm going to be in my energy from one day to the next. And I've had to learn to live with that and accept that over the past almost 58 years. So the moral of the story is somewhere out there in that dream statescape There is a mountain. Climb every mountain. Look to the other side. Don't give up. Don't quit. And never, ever, ever let the bastards grind you down. God bless. God's bless. May you all be blessed by the gods of your understanding. May you all live in peace. Shalom. May you all prosper in all your undertakings, no matter how small. And may you be recognised as a member of your community and tribe and treated with honour and respect and love. May you find your true love partnerships. I haven't yet, but somewhere out there is my true love partner. And may you be surrounded by your loving, kind, nurturing, supporting family members. And those of you who were not blessed like me with loving, kind, supportive, nurturing family members, except for my last remaining daughter, may you find your path in this life, on this planet, in this epoch, in this time, where you are surrounded by good, kind, loyal, loving friends. And may you have a good, kind, loyal, faithful, devoted, loving, respectful partner. That's what I want for myself, people. And may you blossom and grow in all your creativity and all your talents and undertakings. And may you leave a legacy on this earth that is edifying, noble, worthy, and gifts you with such joy and happiness that you left behind something of great worth. And that may not be a monetary or a material thing, but something that is spiritually ennobling and blessing and encouraging to those millions of people on our planet right now that have suffered great loss, the loss of their health, the loss of their sense of security and normality in everyday life, the loss of trust in doctors and nurses and scientists, the loss and trust in governments. Because we, the people, the stragglers, the ones that were marginalised and dishonoured and left to die, are going to need each other more than ever in the coming years. We're going to need those doctors and nurses that were courageous and honourable and ethical and just determined enough to not buy into this alien type invasion that has infected and infested humanity as a species. To heal. I don't know where you are, those good, kind doctors of honour and integrity. I have one in my life that, maybe two. Because you will find me and I will find you by the grace of the gods. Those who are determined to honour the spirit within me and honour the spirit within you. To survive on this planet and to heal and to prosper and to enjoy however many years are allotted each individual on this planet, planet Earth right now, because nothing is guaranteed and nothing ever was guaranteed. Life has always been a miracle. From womb to tomb, each life is indeed a miracle. So we have to make the best of our lives, and we have to we have to find our path that is sustaining to our planet, to ourselves, to each other. And I pray that the Holy One blesses us, each of us, with courage, with light, with Tiferet, great beauty, great art, music, architecture, whatever your talents, however your talents lie, put them to good use within the limited constraints of your abilities. My limitation is always not having enough energy and enough money. I'm time rich, but I'm I'm held back by monetary fiscal issues, but I always have been. So anything I have achieved on this planet, big or small, has been in itself a mark of the generosity of my beautiful friends and my determination to create and to be abundant and also to be blessed, because without the Holy One I would not exist and neither would you. So we have to go within and speak to our own souls. What is it you want from life? I wanted a truly loving, respectful, caring, nurturing, kind, nurturing not in an infantilizing way, but nurturing as in being delighted to be with me and seeing me as for who I am and loving me anyway. Partner, and I wanted to live by the sea, happily ever after, like a fairy tale princess. And I wanted to travel all across the world and see all the sacred sites before I died, or before I became so weak and fragile and ill that I could no longer travel, which I've reached that point in time. I believe that even travelling would be quite fraught for me, even if I did manifest the money. So I armchair travel every day. I follow Love Letter to the British Isles by Neil Oliver, who very sweetly presents Scotland and Ireland and England on lovely sunny glorious days without the drab and the fog and the mist and the dreadful weather. So I get to see the very best of the British Isles on a sunny windless day, just like my hometown Wellington looks like. When the tourists come on the cruise ships, it's a sunny, windless day and they think it's the most magical, beautiful place. And really, most of the time it's windy and quite miserable, really. But it is a magical, beautiful place when the gods smile upon it and the sun shines and it's beautiful. And here I am sitting in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, on a hot, hot sunny day, and I'm going to go now and have a shower and wash my hair and get dressed and just live my best life for the rest of today and the rest of the days allotted me on planet Earth. And yes, take delight in all that is in my current life as I know it on planet Earth today, just for today. And tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow I will continue to co-create. Blessed be. Have a wonderful day, people. Stay away from the exorcists, the ones that think that everyone who's not a Catholic priest is evil. Hello. And maybe I'm a shaman and maybe I'm not, but there's no shame in the game. If you are working towards the edification of fellow spirits on planet Earth in human form and in other forms, then you are not evil, my friends, by the grace of the Holy One and the gods. Amen, Vasila.